A.B. Stoddard, now associate editor with RealClearPolitics.com. This news just breaking as we went to air here. President Obama was given a list of what were described to us at the time as bad options. He chose the bad option that was to remain out of this conflict largely, and we've had very bad results. There's no questioning this. Now, as the pattern by Assad continues, this president has made another decision. What are we looking at here, A.B.?
Well, Shep, you point out correctly that this has been going on for a really long time. President Trump knew there were chemical attacks in the past, that, as you pointed out, this president had been butchering his own civilians to the tune of 500,000 people over 7 years, relentlessly. And so this is a very big change of mind after this attack, and although those images are gruesome, the tactics of Assad have really not changed. So the question now is not just that there is a Russian angle here. The Russian question is everything. It is the bottom line. It is the headline. It is the red line. Tillerson goes to Moscow next week to try to keep an avenue open on issues that we can work on with the Russians. They are backing this brutal dictator who's murdering his people. They don't intend to back down. And they're making some equivocating comments today about how if it wasn't really an attack, an accidental attack on a weapons factory run by the rebels, and it was actually the use of chemical sarin gas on his people, that would, be out of the norms. And they do think the UN should do an investigation. But we know they've been backing this regime fighting its own people, not ISIS, for years, since 2015. So at this point, what is President Trump expecting of the Russians? Are we going to go to war against them, as you've been asking, or are we going to try to coax the Russians into deposing Assad with us? That is everything in this equation. What is the intention of the Russians? What does this administration think that they can get the Russians to do? Well,
we know some of the things the Russians want. We know the Russians want the United States and the rest of the West to back off on its annexation, its invasion and annexing of Crimea. We know that the Russians would like for NATO's front in that region not to be so perilously close to the Russians. So they have a bunch of desires. It's a matter of how much you're willing to give.
I think even if we gave them all those concessions in Eastern Europe, Shep, that they would still, Putin is enjoying a supremacy that he has never had before. He rescued President Obama in 2013 so that he could retreat from his threat of airstrikes with this deal he negotiated to get all the chemical weapons out of Syria. That was a hoax. The weapons are still there. He's been playing a two-step on this the whole time. I don't think he wants to back away from his relationship with the Iranian regime and the Assad regime in Syria. I think he's playing an important role, and I don't think he has any intention of backing off of that, no matter what concessions we give him over the Baltic states or NATO or anything.
We're still in the words category, so this is nothing but talk, at least at this moment. But it is very clear that plans are being drawn up, something that's not unusual. There have always been plans for this, the Pentagon game plans, everything. But you can't overemphasize the many dynamics at work here. Hezbollah is in there, and the Iranians support Hezbollah. We have United States forces on the ground. However, quietly, they are there fighting against ISIS. The Russians are on the ground supporting Assad. You have this toxic mix of all of those people, and then to remove this man from power, regime change, something against which now President Trump has railed for years, could really upset the equilibrium in that region and around the world. When you start talking about Iran here, Hezbollah, Russia, the United States, and Syria, that's almost a world war defined, or at least you risk that possibility.
Right, that's the thing. If he wants to do some airstrikes on their weapons arsenals, that's one thing.
That's a different thing.
Obviously, regime change is a huge occupation of Syria and a massive ground war in which you mentioned there are so many sides and proxy fights going on. And again, are we going to do it with the Russians or not? That's the bottom question. We'll learn more about that in the weeks to come.